Welcome to this On Point now, of course, where we unpack the market movement just a little bit more. Welcome to it. My name is Arabile Kumete. This afternoon, we're joined, of course, by Marco Masilela in a few moments when we'll get to unpack that market movement. But very quickly, let's touch on how things have certainly fared across the globe, particularly when one takes a look at how Asian markets have certainly performed earlier today. It was a bright spark to begin with, but unfortunately, not all those markets finished in green territory, unfortunately. So not necessarily the brightest day on that front. 0.5% down for the Shanghai Composite. Checking in then on how things are doing locally, it's still 0.2% better off for the JSE today, so some positive numbers ever so slightly there. Platinum miners seemingly doing fairly well, as that resource 10 as well also went up around 0.1%. Industrial shares also doing fairly well, the likes of Naspers being pushed along as well today. Very interesting to note, of course, the likes of Discount coming out with their earnings today, and we'll get to unpack that and what that means in just a bit as well, and we'll get to interrogate that data. And the local currency front, well, look at that. We're headed towards 18 Rand flat against the US dollar. We certainly hope to get below that mark, 1.5% stronger today for the local currency. So certainly a sense of positivity coming through ever so slightly when it comes to that market. Let's chat to Marco Masilela now from Marco Fund Managers. Marco, the positivity that seems to have filtered through into the local currency, is that because we've kind of gotten to a sense that things are going to go back to normal, or what other news are we perhaps seeing when it comes to that shift?
Yeah, I think markets are more optimistic that I think tomorrow we should be getting an interest rate cut coming out of our Reserve Bank, what is going to be a 50 basis point or 100 basis point. And also at some point, we just saw the euro strengthening at the back of. We've seen that France and Germany are busy talking about that joint relief fund. And we know that the European Union is our major trading partner. So ordinarily, the rand tends to follow the euro. But yeah, I think the market, the rand is defying what other emerging market currencies are doing. But unfortunately, it's not benefiting our financials, because under circumstances like that, you'll expect to see the banks doing very well. But I think the banks are just down for the fact that interest rate cut are expected tomorrow, then definitely it means banks will start making less money going forward.
How big should that interest rate cut be tomorrow by the South African Reserve Bank?
Anything between 50 and 100 will do good, because you know what, there's a point that you can just use your tools up until a certain point. The guys have just put in some liquidity into the market. Now they'll be helping consumers. But at the same time, they have to be careful that it doesn't get to a point that they are unable to, or maybe when time comes, they start increasing interest rates rapidly to cover up. But what's more critical, Arabil, I think it's more of getting the fiscal policy starting to work. And fiscal policy is not about lending money, but it's about spending that money.
Getting to spend that money is going to be very critical, and spending it in the right places as well is even more significant and more important at a time like this as well. Then, when we talk about spending money in the right places, is the Land Bank the right place to spend that money? I mean, National Treasury committing effectively to saving the Land Bank. And thus far, they've already given them 5.7 billion Rand in government guarantees. More money seemingly coming their way.
Yeah, I think the government is doing the right thing by saying we cannot recapitalize you. We don't have the money. It's up to you guys to go and talk to your creditors to say that you, number one, you negotiate the extension of the terms. Of the terms that you have on the debt. And Arabile, we're talking in an environment where international interest rates are very low. So you are able to go and renegotiate, your interest rates. I mean, take Argentina is busy trying to do that to make sure they don't default for the 9th time. So nothing stops the Land Bank to also do the same. But it's very critical that the Land Bank, just like other state-owned enterprises, they don't have to wait for the 11th hour to start doing all these things. Because if you're running a treasury division, you know that you've got yields or interest rates which are due in the next coming 6 months and a year. So you know how much you should prepare yourself. So you don't have to wait for the 11th hour and get to a point where you're defaulting. All I'm saying is all the efforts that are putting together now is something that should have happened the past 2-3 months.
Certainly more than 30% of the loans that happen in the agri sector do come from the Land Bank. So that kind of tells you the significance and importance of the Land Bank in the mix of things. They're the biggest lender of agri loans in South Africa as well. So very important there. Let's move on then to the aviation sector. We've had word from ComAir, the business rescue practitioners there, saying, I think that we certainly can have a reasonable assessment of perhaps saving Comair, and things should be fine for them. On the other hand, we have SA Express. They gave out a letter to 600 of their employees saying to them, look, do not come to work. You will not be paid because we are bound to liquidate this airline. And then you have Lufthansa on the other side as well. Massive changes happening in aviation.
By all means, and it just shows you, they all fly in the same air, so it's just a question of management. If Comair can still have, their assets compared to their liabilities over assets of 7.4 and liabilities of 5.4, it's just a question of financial being distressed because they're not working at all. And you get the likes of SA Express who cannot even be able, to do anything, even before COVID-19. It just tells you about the management. But yes, truth be told, the sector is facing difficulties, and we've seen the likes of Virgin Atlantic at some point as well applying for business rescue. So it's interesting as well to see the big boys like Lufthansa saying, please, the German government, help us. It's no longer a question of whether we need help or what. It's a question of when is that help going to come our way. And by the way, even the likes of Emirates at some point, they had to tap into their reserves, and they were also looking at getting the help from their government. So I think most airlines are looking to do that going forward. But just confirms to you that it's a very difficult situation if big boys like Lufthansa are definitely struggling and also asking for a build-out.
Yeah, look, it bears to witness then when the 7 biggest airlines in the United States, Markway, are worth less than the video calling app called Zoom, that of course is now in high regard considering the state of affairs. So the market value of Zoom is now worth more than the 7 airlines in the United States combined. Yeah, it really does tell you the state of aviation across the globe. But very quickly, we are running out of time. Okay, please continue, yes.
No, I'm saying it's not looking good at all because even the value of the aircraft will be less because there will be so many aircraft which are lying out there not being used. So even when you start valuing your asset, it means you have to start valuing them less because the value will be down.
Yeah, that's so true. Even Comair is saying they'll only expect themselves to start flying again in around October, November. That's a very long time away. It's at least 5 months away from now. All right, very quickly, Discam coming out with earnings. Of course, they've been embroiled in massive scandals as well when it comes to price gouging and price fixing as well, when it comes to the price of masks. What do you make of their set of earnings?
I think that was the right decision. The guys had to defer decision because here they are. They're faced with buying almost Baby City for almost 430 million, and the guys are looking to expand going forward. But because they're uncertain, like cases like that about the competition board, but also uncertainty when it comes to the local economy. And remember, even though the guys were operating, unfortunately, some of the non-essential goods were not available for sale. Hence, we see their sales are up, but their revenue is not impressive.
Yeah, certainly does tell you the story there. Markway, appreciate the time, but thank you so much for that. Markway Masilela is from Markway Fund Managers helping us unpack that market movement. As we've said there, the sense of positivity in the market, not necessarily a bright spark, but only just continuing the sense of positivity that we have had for the longest time so far. Anyway, the banking stocks not necessarily doing too well, perhaps a few fears just around the liquidity in that market fixture as well. Just what happens from here on in. Well, that is where we bring it to an end then for this segment of Market Sense. We do, of course, continue to give you more information tomorrow. The South African Reserve Bank expected to announce that MPC decision, and it won't be an unscheduled one. But we'll be back with more right after this. My colleague Nzinga Kunda joining you right after this break. Do stay tuned. From me, Arabile Kumete. That's for the Market Stocks.